Okay, I guess we can proceed now. Nobody is saying anything or commenting. That is why I'm a bit confused here, if you can hear me clearly. So I'll just proceed. I told us if you can hear me, you can just maybe do maybe a like or something so that I can get to know. So for the next question, the third question now. So the third question, we are saying we should name and explain or discuss four communication protocols used by IoT devices, right? So I mentioned some of them in class the other day. I mentioned something like Bluetooth. I mentioned something like Zigbee, radio frequency, that's our wireless networks, and also I think something like infrared. So you just look for them. So what I want us to do is to just write short notes on each of them, four of them, right? The communication protocols that are used by IoT devices. Then we are saying you should explain some security problems each one can have. So in each of them, when you are explaining them, just write a little vulnerability about them, right? Vulnerability about each one of these protocols, right? So that is that. Then we also, the question we gave us the other day in class, there when we are talking about identifying some assets, listing a known vulnerability about that asset, then a threat, and then countermeasures. That question is going to also be valid, right? So we are expecting that your case study will be um, something like you being in the university or a business, right? So the assets around that area. If it's a university, you should think that about assets like students' records, you know, student school fee, the university structure, the finance, the email systems given to students. So you should think around that, right? So if we are looking at assets, so those are the types of assets you should look at. So what are the vulnerabilities? What are the weaknesses in that asset, right? So we are talking of student record. You can say, okay, vulnerability is that there might be data breach. There might be data breach, right? It's a vulnerability. And if we say, okay, what is a possible threat? You can say, okay, a possible threat can be a non-state or a state actor or a hacktivist, right? Somebody that is trying to, provide or hack because he has an ideology to push or a political ideology, right? So that's a threat. Somebody that has political ideology and wants, to get students' record can because can cause data breach on that student record, right? So that's a threat. Then you suggest countermeasures, encryption, encrypting data at rest, using secure socket layer for data that is being transmitted or transferred. All of those things are, countermeasures, right? I believe we are understanding what I am saying. So what is expected of us is we are going to be using a tabular form. So the question will be like maybe pick list five or list four of those assets. So you are expected to maybe draw a table, list these assets, list their vulnerabilities in accordance with the assets, then discuss their threats, and then suggest some countermeasures, right? So in a tabular form, that is what is expected. So we can actually do that, right? Then we should also look at threat intelligence feeds and threat intelligence database. So, like I explained it in class, when we say feeds, threat intelligence feeds, what we are looking at are those like the alerts itself that are coming, the real-time alerts, right? What is actually, feeding the database. Why the database is like a library of past incidents, right? A library of past incidents. What has already happened are stored in a database, right? So that's why we call them threat intelligence database. So I told us to be able to differentiate those two and then um, list some examples of what a threat intelligence database can be like and what a threat intelligence feeds can be like, right? So we should be able to do that. Then we should all be able to explain what intelligence is in general. Intelligence, what is it? What is intelligence in general? So please, know what is intelligence in general, right? And like I told us in class, when something is well informed, it is intelligence. We explained it from data to information to intelligence. So intelligence may be some an information that has been validated. So a valid information is an intelligence contextually. So there are also definitive or definitions you can see from other materials, right? So when I say in your own words, write short note on some things, right? And I say write short note on something like intelligence, I expect you to define it both contextually and conceptually, right? So you can define intelligence. Intelligence is the whatever, whatever, whatever of knowledge. And you can also say, okay, intelligence is when is a valid or a validated information, and when data grows from here to here, it becomes information, and from this point to this point, it becomes intelligence. So I expect all of that, right? And you should also be able to explain or write short note on threat intelligence, right? You should also be able to write short notes on artificial intelligence. Remember, we explained threat intelligence, we explained threats as anything that has potential of causing harm. Then when these threats data has been collected, or when all of this information about threats is being collected and stored in a place, right, for it to give us intelligence on how threats behave, we say it is threat intelligence, right? Then artificial intelligence, we also told us when chunk of data is being passed through an algorithm to make it to be intelligent, to make it to be decisive, to be able to think and decide things. We say it is artificial intelligence, right? We also say we should be able to at least write small notes about cloud computing. All of these things I'm saying, please read them. Cloud computing, so you should be able to explain what a cloud is. So like we said, you don't tell me that a cloud is a storage center. Not It's not a storage center. So like we told us, a cloud is actually a physical center, right? That provides remote access to clients, right? A cloud is a physical infrastructure, a physical place, right, that is designed to provide remote access services or provide services remotely to users, right? So you can actually access that virtually from any location that you are, but it's actually a physical location. It's actually a physical location. So we should be able to explain what cloud is and what computing is. So cloud computing will now be all of those computing requirements that is needed to build or form a cloud. So you should be able to explain that. We should also be able to explain machine learning. Machine learning, all of these things are just short notes. So I just expect two, three lines, two, three lines, two, three lines. And just like I told us, you have to know what you are writing so that you can, knowing what you are writing determines your grade, right? So you have to know what you are writing. So machine learning, you should be able to explain it also. Short note on machine learning. So you should be able to explain machine learning, the steps in machine learning, the 7 steps, how you can collect data, clean and that's pre-processing of the data, you train and test the data, you analyze and all whatnot, right? About machine learning. So you should also be able to know that it's a process of when machine learn things to become like humans, right? When machine learn about a chunk of data to be able to think like humans, right? Short note on that also, right? And then Internet of Things too. where things decide to interact within a network, when our physical things decide to interact within a network, right? Internet of Things. So all of these, I expect us to write short notes on them, right? So I'll just walk us through that again. The first thing is for us to be able to agree or disagree whether AI has come to take over human jobs, right? And I told us that what is expected in that question is one, for you to write how AI works, right? Then secondly, for you to identify human qualities that are implemented in AI. And I told us one of them is reasoning, another is judgment, to be able to think and give a judgment, decision making, right? Another one is creativity, right? Critical thinking. So those are the qualities of humans that are used in developing AI, right? So I say you should be able to explain how AI works and the qualities of humans that are put inside of AI, and also um, I think those two major things are just what I expect for that question. How AI works, the qualities of humans that have been added to develop AI, and then maybe your point why you think AI has come to support or has come to take over or not, right? That's what is expected. So all of these things are just maybe one page, not overwrite, just one pages, right? Then I told us again another question will be on us explaining ransomware as a service, right? Ransomware is a malware that when the attacker attacks you, it demands for a ransom from you. So now we told us that ransomware is being used, or attackers will just put ransomware out there for people to buy and then use them. So they're providing ransomware as a service. So you should be able to read it. Just write it down, read about it, ransomware as a service. So what I'm expecting you to write there is how it works, and then how should you protect yourself against it. Just that, so you can see that it's just a page also. How ransomware as a service work, and what are the steps you can take to protect yourself against that attack, right? The third one, I told us that we should be able to list at least protocols, four communication protocols that IoT device uses, four of them at least, and then their vulnerabilities, which is a security problem, right? So you explain, you just write small about the vulnerability of each of those protocols, right? So that is another one page. So I don't need us to just, but if you want to write more than that, no problem. But just know that almost all of these things are just one pages, right? Then we said, okay, you draw a table. Another question, you draw a table whereby you'll be listing five assets, right? Their vulnerabilities, their threats, and then their countermeasures. Just like what we did in class the last time, right? So I made examples using something like student records, right? Where you have student names, student whatever, that student record, if it's an asset, what is the vulnerability? I made example of, okay, the vulnerability can be data breach, a data breach, right? So what are the likely threats? I can say, okay, somebody, a hacktivist, somebody that has an ideology and wants to pass might be the threat, right? And then a countermeasure, you can use encryption for data at rest, and then use secure socket layers for data on transit. Those are countermeasures, right? So in that manner, that is how you list other things, five of them, right? So, and then that is also just that table, five things on that table, knowing the asset, the vulnerability, the threat, and the countermeasures, right? And I also told us that another question will be for us to compare threat intelligence feeds and threat intelligence database, right? So you give some examples of those things, examples of threat intelligence feed, examples of threat intelligence database. Know that and then write them also. Then I also told us to explain what intelligence is, what threat intelligence is, what artificial intelligence is, what cloud computing is, what machine learning is, and then what Internet of Things is, right? So these are just where we are going to be handling. I know they are not quite much, so I just need you one page each of all of these questions, right? just a page each of all of these questions, and then you are good to go, right? So that is that for the revision. I don't know if any of us can ask questions. So whatever question you want to ask, I think you can always reach out to me. You can get my number from your class rep and then reach out to me, and then let's get to know what your challenges are. Right? So with this, I think we have come to the end of this session. Have a wonderful evening and bye.